Everyone, the Book of Boba Fett, Chapter 1 just came out last week, and the DOTR crew, we had some thoughts. Now, for those of you who haven't seen it, there are spoilers ahead, so you've been warned. Now, with that said, let's get to the review. What's up, everybody? I'm Brody from the Duel the Ranks crew, and today we're going to be breaking down the Book of Boba Fett, Chapter 1, Stranger in a Strange Land. Now, if you're new to the show and you haven't actually checked out our podcast, we actually do a really deep dive into the story, the characters, the technical aspects, and the music. And each one of those things we give a total of 20 points, equating to 100 points for the review being, between a 0 and 100. So the first thing we're going to review is the story. It was good. It was a good story. We enjoyed watching it, but it didn't really do a whole lot as far as moving the narrative. You think about great first episodes. I always think back to when I watched Lost for the first time, and you're hooked. That first episode's supposed to give you that hook feeling that says, okay, I'm going to come back next week and because I'm really invested. And just felt like this episode missed that. I feel like it had a longer runtime, maybe between 45, 55 minutes to dive a little bit deeper into some things, give you a better hook. That would have been more interesting. But again, if it's a 36, 38 minute show with 6 to 8 minutes of credits, I feel like you'd probably need to be a little bit more fast paced, but this episode didn't do that. Now, there were a lot of really neat things to see, like how Boba Fett got out of the Sarlacc pit. I loved seeing the flashbacks from Attack of the Clones, where you had Kamino, him, having that dream about that, also with the death of Jango Fett, and seeing what that was like for him, and him thinking back to that. It was really cool to see that because, it was reshot, at least that's what I heard, as well as there were shots that were, reusing old footage with Daniel Logan. So that was cool. He was credited there in the end credits. So that was cool to see. Moving forward, it was interesting to learn more about him with the Tusken Raiders and what that was like, and how he had his armor stolen from the Jawas, and how he went off, and essentially it was kind of like The Last Samurai, where he's going into this new culture, he's learning their ways, and he's going to be, as we know, a changed man for it by the end of it. So really interesting to see, and it was neat, but there wasn't a whole lot there to dissect. So overall, out of 25 points, we gave it a 13.3. Moving into the characters, it's really reflective of the story there. There's not really a whole lot with the main characters. You really need to learn how the show is already set up. If you followed the trailers, if you saw the end of The Mandalorian, you kind of got to just okay, Boba Fett's going to try to reclaim, or he's going to try to claim Jabba the Hutt's throne and fill that power vacuum. And so, yeah, this first episode's about mending relationships. You go into that bar owned by the Twi'lek, and it was neat. It was cool to see. It was cool to see Max Rebo, and it was cool to see him playing with the Cantina band. So there was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to see that, but it didn't really move the needle in any way. So as a whole, we gave it 11 out of 25, which isn't stellar. But again, we do feel like, this is just kicking off the arc, so there's not a whole lot there to digest. Moving into the technical aspects, we gave that a 16 out of 25. It was still, there were a lot of areas where it could have improved. The practical effects were awesome. The CGI for the monster was awesome, but there were a lot of areas that weren't stellar. And so, and again, it was fine. It was a beautifully shot episode, but there were still some areas where the CGI wasn't perfect. You could tell at parts where the action sequences felt more like, okay, this is a TV budget, not a movie budget. And so, again, it wasn't, not a full knock on it, but it wasn't a perfect masterpiece as far as the technical aspects go. Now, the music, that was one area I really loved. The rest of the crew did not really agree with me there. Some of my thoughts on the music, I loved the Mari chants that you had throughout that. I loved bringing that New Zealand Mari influence into American cinema. I think it was really cool for the masses to see and appreciate. Having been to New Zealand myself, I think it's really, really neat to be able to bring in Tamora Morrison's background into the show and his own heritage. So it was neat to have those chants. You also detected hints of Ludwig Göransson's Creed when he did that score. It was really cool. You hear that bell and it gives you that vibe. Okay, there's going to be, you're in the ring. Like he's going toe to toe with something here, whether it be again for that the head of being all crime lords or whatever. You've got this kind of gritty fighting feel that was really neat to have in this theme. Also noticed there was that little Western trumpet, which was fun. You still get that little bit of those Mando vibes out of that, and he is on Tatooine, so you get some of that Western. This Tatooine it is the wild, wild West out there. Anything goes. So that was cool. And then for those of you that were paying attention, I think around the 149 mark, you heard that Crimson Dawn theme, which is a lot of fun. I'm not sure if Kira's going to be involved or Darth Maul, but you do get that sense that, okay, there could be a time where these two crime syndicates go toe-to-toe for the ultimate power of whatever crime, whatever they're moving, whatever it is that they're doing illegally, they're going toe-to-toe for it to be the head honcho. So that was really cool. It tells a lot about the story by just that theme alone. So I really appreciated it. However, some of the other co-hosts, not so much. It didn't have that same feel of, you think about the Binary Sunset theme. You have the themes with like Mandalorian, where you feel like, oh my goodness, this is a top 10 piece of Star Wars music. Duel of Fates is another one, but this music didn't really hit home for them like that. So as a whole, we give it a 14.10 out of 25. And then lastly, the Immersive Universe was a 15.3 out of 25, just because it didn't really move the needle really forward in the Star Wars universe. I mean, we knew Boba Fett was alive. We knew he got out of the Sarlacc pit, so this episode was more just explaining how. It was neat to see Mos Espa. It was neat to see that flourishing community, especially compared to the Mos Eisley Cantina. And you see how it's flourished since Anakin was a little kid, because that's, his hometown, and so how it's changed so much since he was there. But really, that's it. I mean, it was neat to also see, I should also say, it was neat to see the Tusken Raiders and learn a little bit more about their society and how they operate as a community. So that was a lot of fun. It was cool to go back and see that, which we haven't before in the Star Wars universe. So that was a lot of fun to see it in those ways, but nothing really moved the needle forward for Star Wars. So we gave that a 15.3, which totals it out to, for us, at 69.7 out of 100, which, if you're in school, that's a D+, which isn't great. But again, we're stacking this up against all Star Wars content ever, the movies and everything. So this really isn't, it's not going to get I don't think even the best movies have reached 100% review for us. So this first episode has ways to go, and I think the story as a whole has a ways to go. But you look at it, it's only 30 minutes long. It was kind of slow paced, and you didn't really learn a whole lot. So going into the other episodes, I mean, I have full faith in Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, Robert Rodriguez. I'm convinced they're going to put together an amazing story here for fans that we're all going to appreciate. But I think it was kind of a slow opener that you probably wouldn't just introduce this piece of content if someone hasn't seen Star Wars before, saying, you've got to watch this. Whereas you watch the first episode of Mandalorian, and I know plenty of people who had never seen Star Wars before that were hooked after that. And it was just super engaging. You see Mando, and at the time, everyone called him Baby Yoda, or the child, their fingers almost touching. It was really, there was that hook. People wanted to come back for more. I had thought maybe if they released 2 episodes, like they did with Mandalorian when it first started, that might have helped as well. But, there wasn't a whole lot to chew on after this first one. Now, with that said, I love Boba Fett. I've loved Boba Fett since I was a little kid watching Attack of the Clones and learning more about Jango Fett and his cloned, unaltered son, Boba Fett, and all of the clones that came out since, and playing Battlefront 2 and all the video games, and he's been so mysterious, and it's cool to have Temuera Morrison back reprising his role. It's cool to see these things, and even if it's not a stellar episode, I love the fact that we have more Star Wars. I love the fact that we have more Boba Fett content to chew on. And it's neat to see this, it's something that people like myself that have loved Boba Fett ever since we were little, to finally not only learn more about the character, but just get to see him do his thing, get to see him be awesome. So I'm so excited for the rest of these episodes. While it was a slow start here with this first episode, I don't think that's going to hurt the whole show. I just think they're kind of getting warmed up, similar to how you see the Marvel Universe. A lot of those first movies don't really impact the greater universe, but it was a slow cook, and I would much rather have that slow simmer, which ends up with an awesome meal at the end, versus a lot of these shows that have these amazing beginnings, and then you can tell by season 3 and 4 and so on that the writers just don't know what's going on, and they're just throwing stuff in there to try to wrap up the show. There's a ton of loose ends, and as we know, Marvel didn't exactly end that way. And I'm very confident with Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau that their whole Star Wars universe that they're building here, that's just not going to happen. So if you like what we're doing, be sure to hit that thumbs up button, give us a like, subscribe to us. If you want to see more of our content, check out dueloftheranks.com, where you can join our live sessions as we're recording our podcasts. And if you like podcasts in general, check out our show, The Full Breakdown, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. It's all out there for you to check out for the full breakdown. It's just a short review for people that would rather have those than listen to the podcast. So anyway, check those out. Love to hear from you guys. If you have any thoughts, send us a message, jump to our website, leave us a review on Apple Podcast, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week for our breakdown of the Book of Boba Fett, Chapter 2. See you then.